This is a pretty short run. I'm ready to go whenever you are on time. Alright, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. So this is Cthulhu Saves Christmas. It is a prequel to Cthulhu Saves the World, which is an RPG from a few years back, made by Zeboyd Games. The basic story of the game is that Cthulhu wakes up on Christmas Eve and he discovers a present from Santa Claus, which he's pretty shocked about since he's certainly never been good enough to actually deserve a present from Santa. But being Cthulhu, he opens it up anyway, without questioning it at all. And it ends up actually sucking out all of his power. So he sets out on a quest for revenge against Santa Claus to get his powers back. But almost immediately he runs into Crystal Claus, the Snow Maiden, and Santa Claus's granddaughter, who informs him that Santa Claus has actually been captured by a group called the League of Evil. And they're actually the ones who sent the present called anti-presents, which deliver the opposite of what people truly want. So instead of gaining power, he loses power. So we're going to work together with Crystal to get Santa Claus back so we can get his powers back. Now this first boss fight here is still a little bit of a tutorial, so it's pretty easy to get through. There is a little bit to go over just in the combat, but I'm going to have to touch on that in a second, because we're going into a neat addition to the game that they made, which is the the interim between each fight, or each battlefield, I guess. And this is like a town building simulator. So you get to talk with a bunch of different people, and you get to earn items from them by doing so. And you can forge relationships with them, but those don't super matter for the plot. You get a little, they don't super matter for the speedrun. You get more plot at the end of the game, which is neat, but for the speedrun, it doesn't have too much of an effect. What we do care about is the items that we can get along the way. And I'll go over most of the important items as we get to them. So this is Baba Yaga. She's going to join our party. So first of all, she knows the whereabouts of the next member of the League of Evil, but also she has her own reasons for getting Santa Claus back, which are not as humble as Crystal. So Baba Yaga is a mischievous young girl who feels like she has been stiffed on her presents for a long time because she has been on the naughty list. So she wants to help rescue Santa Claus so she can make him pay for all of the presents that she owes, or she's been owed. So you might notice that I'm kind of running through here and I'm not getting any random encounters. That's because this game has a mechanic, and you can see it in the bottom right. That's the encounter meter, and it's filling up over time. And as I'm walking around and it fills up to red, an exclamation mark will appear above my head. And if I press A fast enough, which I happen to be mashing actually, I get to skip the fight, which means I can skip... Oh. Okay, apparently that input didn't go, so I'm gonna do this, and do this. So if I had skipped that, I wouldn't have to fight any extra fights. It's not a big deal. Sometimes you get them, sometimes you're not. It's better to get them earlier than later, although unfortunately I was not actually menued to have my stats, but it doesn't matter because those fights are pretty simple. So hopefully we're going to be able to one-shot, or two-cycle this fight. I didn't actually catch that there. So we might be a little short on damage to two-cycle this fight. And the reason being is that the way the battle system in this game works is that you have 4 abilities you can slot. This is not going to do enough damage, nope. So you have 7 abilities and a defend ability. The defend ability will refresh all of your abilities. The top 4 slots are slots that you can assign abilities to, and the bottom 3 are called insanity slots. So the insanity slots are randomly selected moves at the beginning of the battle that are selected based on they're selected from a pool that consists of all of the unassigned moves plus the insanity pool moves, and the insanity pool moves are moves that can only be in those slots. For the two of those moves are the thunder moves for both Baba and Crystal, which are the only moves that have enough damage to actually finish off the second round. Baba had one, but Crystal did not, so we weren't able to two-cycle it. It is more likely for us to get the moves we need earlier on, and as we progress through the game, it's going to be a little less likely for us to get the insanity moves that we do need. So this is Bell Snickle. He's our fourth party member. He also knows the location of the next member of the League of Evil, and he's also one of Santa Claus's old friends, so he's going to help us out. And it is interesting to note that most of the characters, if not all, are based on some sort of Christmas story or folklore. So there are merits or origins to all of these characters. Especially Cthulhu. He is a very well-known Christmas figure. So a few important things that I picked up. Actually, I guess only the most relevant one is going to be an item that I just picked up called Manga. And Manga is going to allow us to inflict the insanity debuff on all enemies in every battle. So items are one use. Let me just menu real quick here so I make sure I'm not forgetting anything. So I just need to equip a few things here. I need to add some new abilities that just got added, and I need to make sure that I actually equip Manga here. So Manga will allow us to inflict insanity on all members of the enemy team, and what Manga does, what insanity does is it makes them all 10% weaker to dark moves, but additionally, 20% weaker. So dark does 20% more damage, but it also reverses any of the debuffs or of the resistances that they would have. So for example, if they were resistant to fire beforehand, they would be resistant to dark or ice afterwards. I think I said that right. If they're resistant to fire beforehand, they'd be resistant to ice afterwards. That is only necessarily used in the final fight. The rest of it is just for the extra buff on dark, because Cthulhu is going to be our main damage dealer, and Cthulhu is a primarily dark-based damage dealer. So we're picking up a few more interesting items here. And this next fight is going to have all 4 items that we're going to be using for the rest of the run. Some of these... So it is important to note that of all of the, I guess, side quests you can call them in the town, we don't actually have the ability to do all of them, because there's a lot more quest lines than there are days, and each quest takes a day. So we're doing quests, not all of the quests we're doing give items that we want, but we're progressing the quest lines that will give us the items we want. At least for the first bit. Towards the end of the game, we're usually just doing whatever's the fastest, because only some of the items that we actually get are going to be useful. So a few of the things we're picking up here, we've picked up 3 new items that are going to help us in the next few fights. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but because we can skip all of the random encounters, there's only actually 11 fights we have to actually fight. There's 2 tutorial fights and then 9 bosses afterwards. And then any encounters that I'm unfortunate enough to actually run into. And I'm not sure, hopefully it's not too loud, but you might hear that I'm mashing more than one button. So Zaboy games don't disable the keyboard and the controller at the same time. So you can actually use I believe it's Z and Enter key on the keyboard, as well as the A button on the controller to mash through text. That would sound absolutely awful, though, if you listen to me mash my controller against my keyboard for 30 minutes. So I've just rebound that key, or those 2 buttons, to 2 unused buttons on my controller. So I'm effectively mashing with 3 buttons. So this next fight here is actually pretty quick. So one thing that they've actually done is they've released a patch where they nerfed most of the, or I guess it's not most, it's just straight up all of the bosses. All of the enemies, really. It's just only apparent on the bosses. Mostly because it's the only ones I fight. But they made a patch that reduced all of the health of bosses in the game, such that at the start of the game, I believe it was up to 10%, but by the end of the game, everybody has 50% less health. So a lot of the bosses that you used to take a long time on, you can actually just kind of blitz down now. And it makes the end of the game, the last few fights, a lot easier as well, because you don't have to sustain as much as you used to, and you're able to get some of the larger HP bosses down a little quicker. So story-wise, because I'm skipping all of the text, and there's not really a lot that's apparent, in our search for Santa Claus, we have basically gotten nowhere. We've run out of people that actually know anything, so we're relying basically on whatever we get from the League members themselves. And whenever we get to a League member, they're basically, they're really bold up front, but as soon as you beat them, they're like, yeah, I don't know anything, sorry, you gotta ask the next person. So basically we're just doing nothing besides fighting people. Here we actually weren't able to find a lead. They actually kind of found us, and we've been transported to this weird dimension it's a very eerie, sleepy kind of town. And if you've actually played any of the other Zavoid games, I guess not Cthulhu or Breath of Death, but if you've played any of the Penny Arcades or Cosmic, you'll recognize a lot of these maps. This game had a very short dev cycle. They reused a lot of assets for this game, because after Cosmic Star Heroine, they were pretty burnt out, and they wanted to make a game. They basically wanted, they still wanted to make a game, but they didn't want to go through creating all new assets for something while they were still in a very burnt out state. So they just reskinned a lot of assets. So a lot of the maps are going to be familiar if you played other games before. So we've got this. I'm screwing this menu up completely. This and this. So we got a nice weapon on Crystal, which is going to allow her to do a little bit of extra damage here. It trades offense for some defense, but as long as we're careful, it's not going to matter too much. We also got a second charm, so we're going to be able to charm 2 characters per battle. And because Crystal can defend, we actually get a little bit more out of it. Right now, I'm just kind of trying to spread the damage here. We're going to have Crystal do Call of Kraken here, which is going to do a decent amount of damage. And then Cthulhu is going to be the one that's going to take us home here when he gets his a little more damage. This fight is a little on the slow side just because they both have a kind of an awkward amount of health. And we don't have a lot of good AoE right now. So we're just trying to get enough buff damage here so that Cthulhu can one-shot this with his party ability. So this is kind of a holdover from Cosmic, which the mechanic was heavily inspired by Chrono Trigger. But each duo has a Unite ability, which is a pretty strong ability that can only be used once per battle. We're only going to be using a few of them because while they do have their uses, they aren't as effective in the speedrun because we kit a very specific way. But the ones that I've actually been using already, one of them is Call of Kraken, which is an AoE ability from Cthulhu and Crystal, which does heavy fire and ice damage. Then we have Eggnog, which is Baba and Crystal, which is a pretty large stat buff. And Cthulhu Apocalypse is Cthulhu and Baba, and that's a very strong single target dark attack. And there's a few others. One that I hopefully won't have to use, but is there if I need it, is a Crystal and Belsnickel, and that is a full team heal. One mechanic, so there's a lot of battle mechanics. This is a very interesting battle system. A very interesting battle system that it's pretty hard to do justice to in such a short amount of time. One of the great things about Zeboid games that I believe has been a mechanic in all of the Zeboid games is every round enemies will get 10% stronger. So they'll deal a little bit more damage, so it makes fights that might not have been terrible as long as you can sustain a little scarier, because if your sustain stays the same, their damage will eventually outdo you. One neat thing that they did is that Unite abilities will actually get 10% stronger as well each round, up to a total of 100%. So sometimes it'll be better. Got stuck on a rock there. It'll be better to hold the Unite abilities until later on in the fight, just to get that extra damage out. Now, a few things that I've picked up that I'm going to equip here. One of them was the Cat Tunic. This is being given to us by Paws, as well as the Cat Ears, which is an item that will inflict charm. But the Cat Tunic is going to go on to Cthulhu here, and it's going to allow him to hyper on his first turn. Hyper I haven't exactly explained yet, so I'll get to that during the fight. The other one is going to be the Insanity Tentacle. So the Insanity Tentacle is going to allow Cthulhu to recast Dark Blast without having to defend. So he can just spam this ability now, which is very good because it's a very strong move. And also because everything takes more damage from Dark, it means that he'll be able to do that much more damage. So I got a lot of buffs here, so this is going to be a good round, I believe. Yeah, it should be a good one. So Hyper is a mechanic in the game, and you can see the green bars in the top here. So every turn a bar will fill up, and once you have a full bar, you get to deal an increased amount of damage. I want to do a double charm here, so I'm gonna... So him being able to get his hyper turn one turn faster is good because it allows us to do a little bit more damage a little quicker on. This fight's almost done here. The poison's not quite enough, so we're just gonna hit it once and then we're all good. So there's only a few fights left here. So one thing that is interesting to note here, you've noticed I've been doing a lot of expeditions. Mostly I'm doing them because they're the fastest ones to do. I'd be lying if I said I probably would do them anyway, just because I'm a huge Final Fantasy Tactics fan, and the expeditions are based off of expeditions in Final Fantasy Tactics. It's just happenstance that they happen to be some of the fastest ones, and they normally give very good items as well, which is also nice. So this is one of the final maps. This is, I don't actually know if it's called Yogg Drizzle in this game, but it's Yogg Drizzle from Penny Arcade. So that's what I call it. It's the Tree of Life. It's also one of my favorite maps from that game. It's been reskinned a little bit for festivity's sake, but still a very nice map. So at this point in the story, we have determined that Krampus is at the top of this tree, and he has Santa Claus. So he has been behind us all along, and we're gonna go finally rescue Santa Claus. I was definitely pressing that button, but okay. This isn't the worst thing in the world. There we go. A few extra fights isn't the end of the world. So yeah, we've determined that Krampus is here. One plot device that I haven't really talked about is that because Santa Claus hasn't been around, the world's been kind of stuck in, not necessarily a time paradox, but a weird time anomaly, where because Santa isn't around to deliver Christmas, Christmas Day never comes, but time still progresses. So at this point in the game, I believe we're on Christmas Eve, the 36th or something, or possibly the 38th. So basically an entire month, over a month has passed, and we're still on Christmas Eve. So the good characters, Cthulhu couldn't really care, but the rest of the characters hope that by rescuing Santa, this anomaly will end. We're almost at the top here, and we're gonna fight Krampus. So there's only one more set of town building, and you might remember that I mentioned that there was 11 bosses, but only what am I doing here? There was 9 bosses, but 11 fights. There we go. That's what I'm doing. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, that math doesn't actually make sense. And the reason for that is I'm actually going to be fighting 2 bosses in a row here. The first boss is actually pretty easy. The second one's going to be a little bit harder. Just because there's 2 bosses. So this first fight against Krampus is very easy. It's a pretty easy fight just because it's only one of him, so we can blitz him down pretty quickly here. We also got at least 1 buff up, which is nice. You're going to be taking a defend turn here. You're also going to be taking a defend turn. So we got 2 buff ups here, which means we're going to be able to drop a lot of buffs on him, and it should be able to one-shot him as long as the vulnerable goes down. We're gonna skip a buffed up Call of Kraken here just because this should do it. That's not what I meant to do at all. We'll let her finish it off with Call of Kraken. Call of Kraken should do it here. Health, there we go. So I'm gonna butcher this name, but it turns out that it wasn't actually Krampus' his idea to do this. It was actually Nelthrowip, which I butchered that name. But this is one of Cthulhu's longest enemies. So it turns out he was behind this. So now we have to fight both of them. And like I was saying earlier, this fight's a little bit harder because we have to fight both of them, and we still don't have very strong AoE damage. So we're gonna have to just try and take Krampus out by himself while we... And that hit the wrong target. We're gonna have to try and take Krampus out first, and then we're gonna be able to blitz down the other one with damage. We're gonna call a Kraken here because she's powered up. And basically we're just going to slowly chip away with buffs. That was an awkward time to get that buff, because we need that power buff on Cthulhu, but we don't want it right now. We're just gonna have to use it, I think, here, yeah. I don't have the ability to keep waiting here, and as soon as I defend, we're gonna lose the buffs, so we're just going to use them and hope that the damage isn't too much. You going down is kind of bad. We're gonna do a full party heal here. We don't have a way to get her back, so it's not the end of the world. I'm just gonna have to keep buffing up Cthulhu here. Crystal's gonna have to switch to healing here just to make sure that we stay in the fight. But the fight's gonna be pretty well in the bag after this because he doesn't actually do a lot of damage, just a little bit of AoE damage. So we're pretty safe on that front. We're gonna drop charms here. Just get a little bit of damage down. And then we're gonna cycle and hope to find some buffs here. It'll take about 4 rounds for him to kill Crystal, so she can spend a turn or two searching for that buff right there, yeah. If we're lucky, Belsnickel didn't get his second one, but that shouldn't be too much of a problem. We're gonna heal her heal just so we can keep cycling for the buff. The reason I'm basically just defending on Belsnickel here is because he doesn't actually do a lot of damage. There's only 4 characters in this game, so all of the characters have to take up all of the usual roles in RPGs, which means that they kind of have to split between being buffers and tanks and debuffers, which means that they're more suited for one set of not ailments. They're more suited to one playstyle than another. They can't all be damage dealers. So Cthulhu is the main damage dealer, and the other Crystal is like sort of the backup damage dealer, and she's also the healer. But Belsnickel and Baba are more buffs and ailments and tanking and that kind of stuff. So they don't have the sort of damage output that the rest do. So we rescued Santa Claus, but Christmas Day is still not showing up. They kind of blunder around for a little bit, and it turns out that the reason Christmas isn't coming is because this has actually all been a plot by the Ghost of Christmas Future. The Ghost of Christmas Future convinced, or I believe it was actually possessed, I'm not quite sure on that, but he got Nelthwip, who got Krampus to kidnap Santa Claus. So now in order to get Christmas back and Cthulhu's powers, we have to defeat the Ghost of Christmas Future. And we've been teleported to this other time, which is even more dark than the last time we were in. Which is actually, if you paid attention, then it actually started in the same map as the 5th League of Evil. So we're in the final section here. This is the final dungeon. So we've only got maybe about 5 minutes left, definitely less. And we're picking up a lot of gear here. This is all the end game boss, or end game gear. And we're basically gonna re-kit the entire party. So, a few things. I mentioned earlier that Crystal was a backup damage dealer. We're actually going to switch her to basically primarily be a healer. The reason for that is if this fight goes poorly, which hopefully it won't, but if the fight goes poorly, we need somebody to be able to sustain, because it is a very long fight. It is not as long as it used to be. Because, again, all of the health bars are reduced by 50% at the end of the game. But it can still get a little dicey. So we're going to have her equip a wand, which will allow her to recast Gentle Rain. And Gentle Rain is a party heal, and it's very strong. So she'll be able to effectively heal every turn, unless there is something else she should be doing. And we're going to take a long menu here just to make sure everything... Ooh, there we go. Make sure everything is in order here. We need to equip a bunch of different things. We need to add Blizzard and Gentle Rain. We're actually going to get rid of the poison here. And we're going to... There's nothing we do here, but we need to basically re-equip Cthulhu completely. We're going to re-equip Crystal completely. That's fine. And then we're going 2, that's fine there. We're gonna safety save. I don't think I'll need it, but... So this is the final fight with Ghost Christmas Future. He's brought in 4 other bosses that we fought already, and they all have more health than they used to. So this fight... again, used to be a lot worse, but this fight goes on a little bit longer just because there's 5 of them and they all have increased health bars. This first round here, we get rid of that one. We're going to charm Jack Frost, and we're going to inflict insanity on them here. And the reason the insanity is super important, and specifically this fight, is with Jack... Ooh, Jack Frost did not actually get charmed there. That's not the end of the world. I can drop a second charm. Second charm. I'm gonna do this first and then charm here. Normally the first charm works, sometimes it doesn't, so we got a little bit of bad luck there, but that's fine. Once the insanity is down, Jack Frost does enough damage that, because he's weak to the ice, that he'll actually finish his health bar off so that we don't have to. It saves a little bit of time if the initial charm goes off. Unfortunately it didn't, but it's not too much of a time loss here. So we're doing pretty good now, and we actually have the buff on Crystal. So normally I would be having Crystal defend here, searching for her buff, but because we already have it, I'm just gonna have her defend repeatedly here. And basically what we're looking for is we're looking to get rid of Marylude, and then after that we're going to drop as many buffs down on Cthulhu as possible. We're going to drop a vulnerable, and we're going to finish the Ghost of Christmas Future off. We're not too far away from that, actually, so time is going to be coming up in probably about 40 seconds here. I'm going to drop the vulnerable right now. There's not going to be any other moves I'm going to drop on the Ghost of Christmas Future until I finish him off, so it's not going to go to waste there. One thing that you might have noticed is that I actually got rid of poison, and the reason I got rid of poison is because the poison tick will actually actually remove the vulnerability tick, which would be detrimental because you lose the vulnerability, and vulnerability will actually give you 20% more damage. So it's a lot better to just get rid of poison for this fight. But that's time there, and that was Cthulhu Saves Christmas. So we have saved Christmas, rescued Santa, and we get Santa Claus's powers back. I hope everybody enjoyed the run. Cthulhu, basically, the end of the game is he's just going to go visit anybody you formed a lasting relationship with. In this one, we only formed a relationship with Crystal and with the owner of the post office, so 3212 is a pretty good time. I hope everybody enjoyed the run. This very Christmas-themed game. If you liked this game, if it looked interesting, you should check out a lot of the other Zeboyd games. I don't believe there's another one here, but they're all super fun, interesting games. And they're a nice indie dev, so I would check them out. But besides that, thanks for having me, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the marathon.